All right, man. Now let's get into the fun stuff. So, when I reached out to you, we briefly talked. I was a veteran service officer, for those that don't know. Kind of helped veterans file claims and worked for the state of New York. And Dwayne was on the other end, working as for the Department of Veteran Affairs as a rater.
Yeah.
So we don't know if this is official, but I could have, he could have rated some of my claims. We don't know. Hopefully in a good way. But let's get into some of that, man.
Yeah.
So you became a rater in what year?
June 2009.
2009. So
June 2009.
You become a rater for the VA. And so can you explain to the listeners what is a rater?
So rater, RVSR, is the individual that adjudicates your claim, basically says yay or nay.
Okay.
So after the claim is developed and everything is bundled, you're the person that makes the decision. Is it a grant? Is it a denial? Hopefully it's a grant. Then you got to figure out the effective date and the percentage to grant the veteran.
Okay.
So adjudicator.
Gotcha. Man, I mean, we can have this conversation. We could talk probably all day, right? Of stories. But I came up with some questions and I had sent them to you, and I asked some of my people that I've worked with do you guys have any questions? And so at any point, if you want to just kind of chime in and by all means, but we'll kind of get started. So what on a day-to-day basis, what does a rater's job look like? Do you go in and they say, hey, you already know the 4 claims you're working on, or is it kind of like you don't know what you're walking into?
Yeah. Well, before I answer that question, you remember you see these cartoons with the hamster and the hamster wheel?
Yeah.
The hamster is the rater. Okay. So that's how your day starts. So I had to break it up and give 2 different answers because when I first started, everything was paper claims.
Gotcha.
And we used a software called RBA, I think it was RBA 2000, opposed to what they use now is called VBMS R.
I'm very familiar with VBMS.
Okay.
Yeah.
But before then, it was RBA 2000. And it was all typing.
Now, just real quick, let me just interrupt real quick. So this is 2009.
Yes.
So we're not talking 1959. 2009, you're still dealing with paper claims.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
And I use my claim file as a prop when I do my YouTube videos so people can see this is how we adjudicated claims. You just sitting there, you flipping. And I tell people, when you send in 5,000 pages, somebody has to sit through that. Eventually, they're going to, get in the zone and miss something, So when it was paper files and I worked in the office every day, I had a desk. And at my desk, there would be files there. And the supervisor would bring you files to work. You didn't have you couldn't pick. You get what you got. VBMS, electronic, pretty much the same thing. The management analyst for the regional office would send it down to the coach, the supervisor, or the assistant coach, and then they would disseminate it to the raters. So you're sitting there on that hamster wheel, and I'm glad you brought that up because it was a lot of times, even when there was paper files, in this backlog, we were talking about it earlier, we were asking for work. I don't have work. And you have to go to the supervisor and they be like, we have to find you work.
But why?
Piss poor management.
I mean,
it's, the VSRs, they do the development and they make the claims ready for decision. Once they determine that it's ready for decision, then it goes to a rater. Now, what I would used to do back when it was paper files, we had digits. So here in the state of Florida, if your social security number ended in 08, I was that person.
I'm sorry, guys. No.
unless it was like they call it a special. I can't think of the name of that team, but they would handle like all the real hard, like Parkinson's and SMCR ones, they would do all those. That would take like a day and a half, 2-3 days to work. Okay. So mine would be like 2 or 3 issues, 7, 8 issues, or, something like that. And my thing was, let me request as many exams as I can, because if I got 15 claims out there for an exam, eventually I'm going to get those back and I'm going to have work. And one of my supervisors, what he started doing was giving it to other people. So I'm like, where's my work? They're like, we got to find it. We got to find you work. And I'm like, what do you mean? So when they talk about backlog, and that hasn't changed. I talk to people, radios that still work for the VA. It's like, yeah, we still ask them for work from time to time.
And it's crazy because you still hear, and as I'm sure you keep up like I do, like the backlog hasn't changed. I mean, they're still in the hole tremendously.
Right.
And they did a huge hiring thing about a year and a half ago, I want to say.
And see, that's where veterans and the people on the outside, they hired 500 people. I was in training from June 9th to the end of October. They don't do that anymore. Now, watch this video. Watch that video. And that's, in my opinion, a reason for a lot of DTA errors, duty to assist errors, right? Because they're rushing through this stuff and they're not understanding it fully, and they're just like multiple choice. They just make a decision. And then the veteran is affected, right? So if they went back to that training, management mindset, and this is from someone that worked in management outside the VA. Got paid a lot of money to manage people, manage departments, and was able to work on $1 million projects. The mindset is different. You're looking at, how do I be proactive? Because if I have to produce 20,000 widgets today, then I don't want to wait on this motor to fail on this conveyor belt. I'm going to swap it out while this line is down so I can get, this belt doesn't stop, because if it stops, I can't produce those 20,000 widgets, right? So management of VA are not proactive. They're reactive.
Yep.
And by that time, it's too late. You got the backlog through the roof, So it's little things that I think they could have done at the regional office and maybe even at the national office to get those claims pushed through. But for whatever reason, it seems like, they're still stuck in the dark ages with that.
And I want to go back on something you said, because your training, you said, was from June to October. And a lot of people in our world of consulting now, right? Mm-hmm. And we're not, quote unquote, we don't work for the VA. We're not, right. What's the word? Accredited through the VA. Yeah. I say the word so much I forget it. Mm-hmm. So I just want to put it out there for the people to know. Like, I worked, in my opinion, for probably one of the better states that handles training VSOs. But I'm going to be honest. My first day on the job was showing up to the office. I was handed a 38 CFR, and they said, I'll see you next week. Right? There is no, when you say someone's accredited, that doesn't mean they went through some extensive training.
Right.
And I think a lot of people are like, they think that because you are quote unquote accredited through the VA, that you have this huge book of knowledge, and it's not the case.
Yeah.
You may have a veteran service officer that is amazing and studied the 38 CFR, got to know the regulations, the rules, and knows how to file claims and what to do. But you may have ones that don't. Right. And I'm sure that you it's probably what's going on now at the VA, and we won't talk too much on that. But I just wanted to make that kind of clear, like, not all VSOs are out there getting crazy training, know. And just because you're accredited doesn't mean that you're this phenomenal guy at the VA stuff.
Right.
So
I hear it now. People leave nasty comments on Facebook, we were talking about earlier, but I don't let that sway me from what my passion is to make sure I leave no vet behind, educate veterans to the point to where they could possibly go out and educate other veterans.
Exactly. Yep.
We was talking earlier, and I was talking to a lawyer, and they didn't even know what CFR stood for. I'm like, how do you not know that? Yeah. If you don't know that, you may not know about effective dates. How can you represent someone if they got not a proposal to reduce, but a proposal to sever from 100% to nothing? That's going to take some, extensive time to look through and try to figure out. Now you're not only dealing with the 38 CFR at that point, you're looking at court cases to set precedent.
Exactly.
And you got to go and find it.
Yep.
And that's a lot of court cases. So when people say, "Oh, well, are you accredited?" I would say being a former RVSR and taking tests every 2 years to grade me to see if I know my job, I'm accredited through the VA. Not the accreditation they're talking about, but accredited through the VA. So I'm not saying that VSOs don't know anything. You're a VSO. And like you said, you had some good ones, some really knowledgeable ones.
It's like any other field.
Yeah. Just raters. You got some good raters, and I work with some horrible raters.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and you rating? I'm like, what? And so it's just one of those things, But again, I don't let that sway me from what I'm trying to do, what my passion is as it pertains to educating veterans on this process.
Yeah, and I'm in the same boat, man. Like, we were talking earlier, it's just about, at the end of the day, it's about helping veterans. I don't care if they go to my consulting company, yours, a VSO, whatever they choose, just tap into your benefits if that's what you're entitled to.
But don't go to where you don't want to go is to they say it. You don't want to go. You don't
we had that conversation. Yeah. I mean, no, they said is like, we should probably trademark that and put it on a shirt or something.
Man, yeah, I know.
Because
right?
they said, I get calls at least a couple times a week. Well, my cousin said, or they said that I can, and at the end of the day, if it's not in the 38 CFR, if it's not the way it's done, I mean, can you touch on the they said a little bit? I know you said you made a video about it. That's why I said
I did a video on it. And I can't remember. It was like 4 or 5 things that I talked about. But they said is like you going down to your local American Legion Hall or VFW Hall, and you're sitting there and you're having a beer with other veterans, and they're like, "Oh yeah, go use this VSO here. I use them," and they got me 100% because they said, and then they'll pick up the phone and call me, and they was like, "Well, I was talking to this vet, and they said," and I'm like, "Look, every claim is different. Whatever you're trying to claim, where does it fall under the 5 ways of service connection? What is that? What they said, they didn't tell you, So it's things that you have to know. So it's unfortunate, and I always say the people say, "Well, Dwayne, what do you suggest? What do you advise? Get educated. Get educated first."
And they can do that right on your YouTube channel, man. You have a ton of information on there. I'm gonna ask some questions for the some of these I know the answers to, but I want to ask them for the rater, for the claimants. So, what is something a claimant can do to make the rater's job easier?
Man, submit the right paperwork.
Okay.
Submit. I could tell within 5 minutes of reviewing that claim if that veteran was educated on the process and if I had what I needed to grant the benefit. So the big issue right now is veterans submitting actionable and sufficient DBQs and nexuses if needed, right? So if I receive a claim where a veteran had a DBQ and the nexus, if it was warranted, that claim was RFD, I'm rating it right on the spot. I'm not even requesting a CMP exam because there's regulations out there states that I don't have to. That's not happening today. But whenever I got a claim and the vet had the right information, we had one client submitted a claim on a Monday and got a rating decision on Thursday. He said, "Oh man, the VA is fast track." And I said, "No, your claim landed on a rater's desk that was probably behind on their production quota." And yes, VA employees own production quotas and quality quotas. And they needed that, make that point before that Friday because it probably was the end of the pay period and they wasn't working Saturday, and Saturday is the end of the pay period. I say they were probably behind. It was like, "Oh, he got a DBQ, Nexus, oh man, this and is correct. I'm not scheduling an exam. I'm gonna go ahead and rate it. So those were some of the easiest claims to work. My YouTube videos, I'm giving people a blueprint. And people often ask me, Dwayne, which videos should I watch first on your channel? 1, the 5 ways of service connection. After that, then what? Look for the ones that only have 2,000 or 3,000 views. Those are the ones that are most important.
Isn't that crazy?
And people don't view them.
Why do you think that is? You think it's because it's more complicated?
No,
or?
They want to see videos about the new cost of living allowance, the flashy thumbnails with the dollar bills. Because I did a test. I said, let me go talk about this and see. And those videos I did got a lot of views. But it's not information. The information about cost of living allowance is not going to help you when you've been denied and you don't understand that rating decision and you don't know what you need to do if you want to submit a supplemental claim and be successful the second time around. Cost of living allowance is not going to, the new COLA for 2024,
don't matter.
It's not going to help you.
Yep. Great answer. And guys, listen to what he's saying because it's going to help you in the long run. How often is a rater's work audited or checked for errors?
Yeah, just did a video on that. They pull 5 ratings a month. Now, the thing to keep in mind, if I did 50 ratings that month and they only pull 5, what if I'd made an error in one of those other 45? And what I talk about in this upcoming video, they got a backlog, meaning
the backlog got a backlog.
So what that means is I get an error in February. I don't get notified until June.
Oh my gosh.
Well, it's not that they're holding on to it. That's how far bagged up they were.
Yeah.
So they're pulling 5 of my reviews in June for the month of February. So I get the error. How many other cases you think I worked like that where I made that particular decision? What if those don't get pulled?
So what happens then?
Veteran files an appeal or high-level review, DTA error. Those are through the roof now.
But what happens if they don't file it? What happens if they find an error on your end, but the veteran doesn't know?
It's just that. Now, a lot of people think errors are a bad thing.
It could work in your favor.
It could work in your favor. I had a vet, got 100% for prostate cancer. Had a routine future. He had 100% for over 10 years. Nobody went back and scheduled a routine future.
So he's locked in.
And then it finally comes up.
Yeah.
And now he has to go through it. And the veteran was like, wait a minute, y'all let me go this long. Why? But routine futures are not, those percentages are not protected because you had that routine future exam.
That actually leads to a question that I get all the time. And coming from a rater, I want you to explain what people ask me all the time. What's the difference of 100 and 100 and permanent and total?
Well, 100%, I did a YouTube video on this, routine future. If you're 100% without being permanent and total, that means a rater has said they feel your condition is going to improve. Now, for cancers,
automatic.
Yeah, well, it's automatic 100, but not an automatic 100%.
Yeah.
Or not 100% PNT because cancer goes into remission.
Yep.
And then we have to rate off the residuals, okay? But if the veteran is terminal, going through treatment, then they can continue that 100%, but they're not permanent total. Now, if they come back in and all their other conditions get them to 100%, you can be permanent total.
Okay.
You don't see that a lot, but I've seen it where it has happened. Permanent total meaning all your conditions are static. The rater doesn't think anything is going to improve. I could count probably on one hand how many routine futures I did. I didn't like them. because I'm not a medical or mental health professional. So if I'm looking at the paperwork and the paperwork doesn't jump out showing improvement, even if it did, I was still hard pressed. What I would do, I would cover myself in the rating and put verbiage in there. So if it did get pulled for a quality review, I wouldn't get dinged by not, keeping that veteran at 100% without being permanent total. So I just wrote something in there. So if they say, well, hey, why didn't you, this vet is 27 years old, why are you in scales of a routine future? Because multiple deployments, divorced from his wife, wife wrote a letter in saying she divorced him because she couldn't live with him. He says he's lost 2 or 3 jobs. Last job, supervisor wrote a letter. At that point, well, I'm going to keep sending that vet back in. Yep. He needs to go and deal with what he needs to deal with and not worry about, is he going to get reduced from 100 to 30%?
Yep. Well, thanks for being a great rater, because it sounds like you were. So.